I believe More was the first song that Tony said he heard of yours. What do you think has given that song its staying power over all these years? I mean, it's crazy how that song plays so prominently in your biography. What do you make of that?
I think I wrote it with Dennis Morgan, who is a master songwriter, and I had the chorus, and he helped me build, especially the bridge where it goes into those Beatle chords, that B minor section. The lyric is so honest, and I'm not bragging about my lyric because I'm not the Dennis Morgan kind of songwriter he is, but it's like it says, "I'd give you my seat on the train to heaven if only one of us could go." And that's what I call a universal truth. That's what we all kind of want, you know? And as a kid in an orphanage with no family, with no ideas or prospects for the future, and then this woman comes in and looks at me and immediately says, "That's the one." And then somehow or another, probably for the first time ever in her life, she stands up to Fred Rash, my dad, and says, "I'm taking that one." And they didn't read, they didn't write, they had menial jobs, and they still found a way to get me out of that place. And then when I met my real father, which I met during the film, I don't know if we're going to talk about that, but
Oh yeah, we
I'd
will.
only been there 10 minutes when he grabbed my arm because it was obvious he was my father. I didn't know where the tree was, but I didn't fall far from it. I was just like him. He grabbed my arm like that and he squeezed it harder and he said, "If I'd have known you was in that place, I'd have come and got you." And that's what more is. More is a statement that I will love you more than I love myself. That's how I feel about my family. It's how I feel about my children. It's how I feel about my dog, man. It's how I feel about the people that I love. I want them to be okay. And everybody wants someone like that in their life.
There are several songs which stand out on that record. One of them you mentioned earlier being Lipstick, which wound up being your highest charting single ever, as I recall. How did that song come about?
I had a girlfriend who she used to be a cheerleader for the Minnesota Vikings. But I met her at a bar called Pavlitsky's in Minnesota that I was playing at. And so she's this very pretty girl that comes in and does bartending twice a week. And back in those days, you would play the club the whole week long, right? And so and she would come in and she wouldn't really work. She would come in and people would bring tips. She had like a bigger cheering section than us, than the band. And then she ended up being my girlfriend. And I said to her, I said, because she would make a lot of money. This is getting the lipstick because the song's about her. But I said to her one time, I said, "You make a lot of money." She goes, "Yeah, I do pretty good." And I said, "Why do you only work 2 days a week?" And she said, "Because I can't make it on one." And so the idea, the hook, "you can put your lipstick on while I drive," came to me when she was trying to get ready and we needed to go somewhere. And I wanted her to go, "Come on, you get in the car. You can put your lipstick on while I drive." That was the idea. And then, of course, we turned it to be, I wrote that with Mark Prentice, as a matter of fact. And we turned it into this thing about let's just go. Let's go chase that. Because, the only thing that will guarantee that you fail is if you quit. And every VFW, every single American Legion and VFW and little hole in the wall club has some 50-year-old guy playing Proud Mary and Sweet Home Alabama that thinks, what would have happened if I'd have gotten that van and went to Nashville? I wonder if I could have done it. And that's what Lipstick it's about. It's about go for it. Give it your best. Find your tribe. And that's the one thing, whether I win, lose, or fail, or however this ends up, I'll never look back and say, I wonder what would have happened, because I know what happened.
I know for a long time you were very closed about being an orphan, and now that you're more open to talking about it, how much do you think the idea or label of orphan played a role, either consciously or subconsciously, in your creativity and your drive to play music, perform music, be remembered maybe for your music?
I think subconsciously it was more than more than anything else as a driver for me. And I didn't really, I never addressed it. Like I never told, I spent 39 years of my life either avoiding talking about my childhood or lying about it because I didn't want people to know. I didn't want, and it's not because I was ashamed of it as much as I didn't want people to feel sorry for me. I didn't want, I was a veteran. I'd been deployed, uh, in the Army. I'd come back. I went to California and went to this guitar school that was a dream of mine. Each one of those milestones, while those things don't wound up being a brownstone in Brooklyn or something like that, they're huge milestones from a kid that grew up on a dirt road in North Carolina. And so I didn't want that to be like, oh, there's Rocky, he's the kid from the orphanage, or I didn't want that. And then I was fortunate enough to meet Richard Leigh, who wrote "Don't It Make My Brown Eyes Blue." Remember that song? And he just written the whole. He's in the Songwriter Hall of Fame, and his story was very similar to mine. He was 5 or 6 years old when he was adopted, and he thought the same way. And then he and I wrote a song together called "That's Where Songs Come From," which is on the very first Universal record. And that song speaks volumes, and it liberated me because at that point I thought, I just am who I am. And how I got here is how I got here. And I love that about country music now with a lot of the people like Jelly Bean or Jelly Roll or those people that have, a tainted kind of past, and they don't shy away from it. They embrace it and say, this is what I learned from, and this is how I got there. And that might be the same way I think about it.
Well, sometimes you got to steer into the skid, right?
You absolutely do, my friend.
And the only reason why I asked that question now was because hearing your story, it just seems like there were many times when you could have just thrown in a towel where other people may have, but you never did. And I'm just wondering if the circumstances of your birth played into the fire you had to speak to the world through your music.
I think I was blessed with a tremendous amount of tenacity. No doesn't mean anything to me. No just means not now. And I'm really just trying to get it forward to the next thing, the next gig, the next time we play. I love to play music. I love to play for people. I love to write songs. And as long as I'm able to do that, I'm going to do it at whatever level I'm able to do it at.